We're all very happy to have millions of readers in continental Europe, and we're embarrassed that our country is saying we don't want to be part of Europe, we don't want to be in your club, we're okay on our own. And we wanted to make this tour to say to our readers, we still love you.
On the morning after the referendum, I woke up and I cried because I couldn't believe the result, and I couldn't believe that I felt suddenly like the country that I'd grown up in which I'd felt European, had suddenly switched. I felt like I didn't belong there anymore. And I think that many people feel the way I did. And one of the nice things about Ken suggesting this tour was it was a way of feeling less powerless, and it was a way of conveying to some European audiences that not everybody in Britain is represented by the politicians.
For me, I don't think about my readers when I'm writing. When I'm writing, I'm thinking about my characters. They're my friends. And I'm thinking about, does this story work? Is it exciting? Will people enjoy to read it?
I love all my readers, and I want to give them a wonderful, wonderful experience each time I bring out a book. But the way to do that is to ignore them while I'm writing the book, because a book has to be organic, it has to have a vivid beating heart of its own. And if you start thinking about too many other things, like women in Holland must love this book, or men in Germany must like this book, if you start making a laundry list of points that you've got to hit, the book will be no good. So ironically, by ignoring the readers, you are actually giving them a good time.
It's the purest way to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, is to read a book in which you're pretty much inserted into a character's brain.
We all travel all over the world talking to our readers and our books in translation. Readers have more in common with each other, whatever their nationality, than people who don't read in their own country.
And if you want to be a writer, and being a writer is great, it's the best job in the world. We have a great time, and the only way to be a writer is to be a reader first.
I never planned to write this book, but after the fire on the 15th of April, 2 days later I came to Paris to take part in a television program called La Grande Librairie. And the next day I had breakfast with my publisher, and she said, we would like you to write a short book about Notre Dame very quickly. And we will give, the Maison d'édition will give its profits to the building fund. And I said I would love to do it, and I'll give my royalties to the building fund.
I'm a novelist. That's what I write non-fiction as well, but I've not ever been a journalist. I occasionally write something. But for me, I think that we learn about history through falling in love with characters. And I think the reason that people love Ken's books and my books so much as historical fiction is that sometimes if you put yourself in the footsteps of the people of the past, that's when you learn about, for me, the wars of religion, or the Cathars, and Ken, also wars of religion and many other things. And I think that, therefore, for me, history and writing fiction are not separate things.
I know that your students are smart and intelligent and hardworking, and therefore I would encourage them to become journalists. More than ever now, we need journalists who will do the work, tell the truth, stand up for things. We're in a very dangerous piece of history now as far as news reporting and journalism goes, and I think it should be seen as an important and honorable profession. Ken and Jojo were journalists, and I'm sure they will say the same thing. Standards have gone down. We need to bring them back up. We need to make a journalist as important as a doctor or a rocket scientist or anything like that. We really need that now. So I would urge, if your students are deciding what they want to be a journalist.
Pretty much all my book ideas have come from newspapers. I read something, I hear something on the radio news, and it makes me wonder, what would it be like to be that person? What would it be like to be the person who discovers the body in the hotel room? There's always an interesting story behind the story, and it's great because every day there's something new to write about.
When I was 12 years old, I read a James Bond story by Ian Fleming. And I thought it was the greatest thing that had ever happened to me. And then 10 years later, when I began to try and write novels myself, I remembered not the James Bond story, because I don't write at all like Ian Fleming, but I remembered the excitement that I felt when I had a new James Bond story to read. And I wanted my readers to feel that kind of excitement about my books. It's a high ambition, but a good ambition to have.
My inspiration comes from the land. It comes from landscape. And I became a novelist absolutely because I went to Carcassonne. And all of my historical fiction is a love letter to Carcassonne. But the book that I read that made me realize that history wasn't just the kings and the queens, as I said, was by Emmanuel Ladurie, a book called Montaillou, and it was about the last Cathar village, Ken will know it, up in the Pyrenees. And it was that extraordinary moment, and this is a while back, of thinking, yes, of course, ordinary people don't appear in history, but you can put them in the pages of a novel. And it was the combination of being in Carcassonne and reading that book and thinking, oh, I see. Oh, I understand now. That's the sort of writer that I could be.
I had one particular teacher that saw something worthwhile in me and really inspired me and encouraged me. I know the same was true of my daughter, and the same was true of a lot of different people. So being a writer is the best job in the world. Being a journalist is a very important job, but probably being a teacher is the most important job of all.
Sciences Po.